What's up, IG? I'm live right now, and I'm going to be making some eggplant parmesan, plant-based, of course. I want to invite you into my kitchen, and I will teach you this very, very, very simple recipe, okay? So, this recipe is likely a little bit more simple because I'm going to kind of expedite it. It's a little bit more simple than it would be if you're making everything from scratch, which I'm not. I'm using a sauce that was pre-bought, but a tomato sauce is very, very easy to make from scratch, but I'm not doing that today. Now, what's going to make this eggplant parmesan a little bit unique is that the first time I made eggplant parmesan, it was phenomenal, but I used a substitute meat. So it's a ground protein. It was a ground meat protein, similar to like an Impossible Burger or a Beyond. It wasn't that exact brand, but it was like kind of like the substitute meat crumbles, and it was really delicious. It was really delectable. But you do want to be careful with some of these meat substitutes that you're using because, again, it's processed food. And so with the vegan lifestyle, with the plant-based lifestyle, the goal is to be healthy, is to eat as healthy as possible. And so I do like I've said before, I like some of the vegan chicken patties. I'll throw that over my salad from time to time, but I do moderate my intake of it. I don't have it every single day because I know that it's still processed food. And if you are getting the processed food, try your best not to always do breaded. That makes it a little bit less healthy. Even though I do sometimes, I don't do it very often. So what I've done, I already got started on this recipe. I had some lentils, and these lentils look yellow, but they're actually red lentils. So that's going to be my meat substitute instead of a Beyond Meat or an Impossible Meat or any sort of protein substitute that you might buy at the grocery store. Can very easily just use lentils, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So I've drained these lentils. They're cooked thoroughly, and it's going to be pretty easy to mesh that into the sauce. That's going to be my substitute meat. You can see lentils. Voila. So I've got those going. All the water is draining out. The last thing that you want is like a very I don't know. Do you remember like back in the day where you would go over to your friend's house and their mom like couldn't cook, and they would have, of course, like spaghetti every night because that's the easiest thing to make. But the spaghetti would be like they still couldn't get it right. No shade, but nobody wants any watery anything. Like, don't water down the sauce. I don't want any watery spaghetti. No, thank you. So we want to make sure that these lentils drain properly. Now, one point of advice that I would give, let me load this music a little bit. While you're boiling the lentils, go ahead and add some seasoning. One of my key ingredients, this is a secret of mine that I'm going to share with you guys, is a vegetable stock. It is the base for a lot of my cooking. It's what gives a lot of the flavor. I learned it from my mother. It's one of the recipes that one of the ingredients that she typically uses with her recipe. So rather than like a Lari seasoned salt or an adobo, which, adds a certain flavor component, go ahead and find a vegetable soup broth. Make sure that it's plant-based. Make sure that there's no, dairy or any animal products in it whatsoever. But that is one of my secrets. And that's what gives the food like a really good flavor, like a dense flavor. So I would say that when it comes to something like legumes, like a lentil or bean, go ahead and add that flavor into the boiling water, because these legumes, they soak up a sizable amount, like a large quantity of water, which is what makes them soft. So while they're absorbing the water, if they can absorb the flavor that's within the water, it'll make them so much more flavorful. And when you're doing plant-based, where you're substituting things and you're not cooking with meat, flavor is everything. I think that that's kind of what turns people off of the lifestyle. People may be able to adapt to the idea, the concept of not eating meat or dairy, but the idea of it being bland is just something that's like intolerable for people. So I make my food flavorful. I do like a lot of flavor, but I try my best not to overdo it as far as the salt. I try, sometimes I do, but let's get back into the recipe. So I'm going to chop up some mushrooms, some onions, and some scallions, and that's going to be added to the sauce. I made some dumplings, and I will show you guys the recipe for these dumplings at some point or another. I ate really well just now. I'm pretty full. It's always a good idea to eat before you cook. For me, at least, I've noticed it's a really good idea to eat before I cook. It's also a really good idea to eat before you go to the grocery store. Why? Because you'll make more sensible decisions when you're at the grocery store if you go with a full stomach. It's not gonna be like, ooh, that looks good. Yeah, I'm gonna get that too. Yeah, I want that also. Yeah, I'll have a little bit of that. You'll be like a little bit more sensible. Like, yeah, you know, my stomach is full. I don't really need this. I might need a little bit of this, but I don't really need this much of that. And then cooking after you've had a full stomach allows you to have a very accurate palate. When you're hungry, everything tastes good. But after you've had a nice full meal, your palate can be very refined and be like, that ain't it. So I intentionally ate, and I ate well. When we're talking about health and wellness, one of the, I guess, things that you should try to incorporate is not eating late. I have a cutoff time of about 7:30, where I just stop eating. Some people call it like intermittent fasting, but it basically gives your body a chance to properly digest the food thoroughly before your next meal. So you're having at least like 12 to like 18 hours in between meals, and that can really help you with your digestion. If you're looking to lose weight, if you're looking to maintain your weight, just stop eating after a certain hour. So this is usually cooking time for me, between 5:30 and 7, sometimes a little bit earlier. Okay, so I got my scallions cut up. I'm adding this to the pan. Inside the pan will just be a tiny bit of olive oil, just for the veggies to cook down. Next, I'm gonna slice up a little bit of regular onion. And for the sauce, like I feel like you should chop it kind of fine. So I made dumplings. I made some vegetable dumplings. I got a vegan dumpling wrap for my dumplings, and when I tell you that they're phenomenal, I could literally eat these dumplings every single day. They're really, really good. Like I've told you guys, I'm not a calorie counter, but if you are, I think it's like 50 calories per 3 dumplings. So 9 dumplings, I can do this. 9 dumplings, 150 calories. 12 dumplings, 200 calories, not including the filling. But the filling is cabbage, mushrooms, carrots, and tofu. I will go through the recipe at one point with these dumplings. I've told you guys how much I love Asian food. I can pretty much eat Asian food every single day. I've found that the transition with Asian food to make it plant-based is super easy. For whatever reason, like, it's just very, very easy to make it plant-based. I've noticed that a lot of Asian cuisine is heavily vegetable-based. Now, when they Americanize it, that's when they start adding the this and the that. But, you know, they use a lot of, like, fresh vegetables, which is really why I like Asian cuisine. It's pretty healthy for the most part when we're not talking about the kung pao and the deep-fried this and the deep-fried that. So I can eat Asian food almost every single day of my life. So I'm chopping up these onions nice and fine, guys. Nice and fine. Nice and fine, nice and fine. See? That goes into the pan. Mushrooms. This was an acquired taste for me. I could not stomach mushrooms as a child. But now I do like them, and they're so beneficial for you. They're so good for you. It's technically a fungus, but it's like the variety of mushrooms are just, especially when you're vegan, mushrooms are one of our best friends, because you can have a mushroom, like a whole portobello sandwich, and it's scrumptious. Sort of like the cremini, I think that's how you pronounce it. Portobello, oyster mushrooms are probably my favorite mushrooms. You have vegans that are making scallops and oysters out of mushrooms, and it's really, really cool. The texture it can mimic a lot of different things. And again, for the vegans that are really trying to get away from the fake meats, mushrooms offer like an excellent substitute. So we are adding some mushrooms to the sauce. I'm dicing it up real fine. And the stove is on low, so the veggies don't overcook. But we're just kind of keeping an eye on it to make sure that the onions get translucent. That's when you know that they're pretty much done. And I would suggest that maybe you cut the stove off when the onions are just a little translucent, because don't forget, we're going to add the sauce and it's going to continue to cook together. So now that the mushrooms are nice and chopped up, you can go ahead and add that to the pan. Yep, okay. So we can give it a good stir. It was great because the other day I decided to just reorganize my kitchen, and everything's just so much easier to find. So I got everything in here. You can see that the onions are getting a little bit translucent.